I'm David Lowenfels, the creator of the VibroKit, and I'm here with my friend Eli Abela, and we're going to chat about the VibroKit and other cool stuff. Ellie, I've known for maybe almost, I don't know, 15 years or something, just kind of peripherally from our different studies. And she was my first customer of the VibroKit, and so I'm so grateful for that, for your curiosity and wanting to support your friends in their new endeavors. I remember that meant a lot to me. And also, my customer support, because it broke, right? And I had to send you a new one.
Yes,
So that was a
exactly.
good learning for me about how to improve the product so that it was more durable. Because it was kind of, started out highly experimental. And so I was like, hey, I need people to try out this thing and give me their feedback. And I remember a funny thing that you said you enjoyed watching Game of Thrones on your VibroKit table, right?
Yeah, totally. I loved it. And I would listen to like the Jon Snow theme and the like the dragon theme because Ramin what's his name? Ramin Djawadi or something like that, the composer. So
Hmm.
prolific in his compositions and it's so like
Oh yeah.
it's so cinematic and it just felt so good. It felt like you were there. I
Dun,
really love
dun,
that.
dun, dun, dun,
Yeah,
dun.
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
And s and so I also remember you were working with children, like doing like developmental neurological kind of stuff. Do you want to tell me a little bit about that?
Yes, so special needs kids. For some reason, that there's this real calling or resonance to be of service to these special kids because they're special more than They're just there's just something different about them, and there's just real calling to kind of provide possibilities for them, just to actualize the a maximum potential as much as we can. It's possible in the 3D kind of thing. And so far so good. It's a lot of work, but so far I've actually had breakthroughs where the conventional medicine hasn't, where functional medicine hasn't as well. And it's really plugging into the biological laws of nature and biohacking.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's also part of what we share, or kind of anatomy and physiology and neurological and biochemical and metaphysical. We like to nerd out and see all the interconnected things. So yeah, it's very impressive, all of the different things that you studied. And the somatics is really also, a
Dramatic.
big connection. And so it was a kind of lineage of the Feldenkrais that you studied with a knot. You want to
Yes.
say a little bit
Anat.
about that?
Yes, yes, Anat Banyel method. She was like the prodigal, not the pro sorry, not she was like a protege, not the prodigal daughter. She was like a daughter to him. And
Mm,
she started the work when I guess she was 19 and he was just starting out and experimenting. And but it was really picking up. And what he would do is that there would be like stadiums of people coming over to, get his work like done and them. And he would kind of filter out the special needs kids into one room and he would just tell her what work on them. So what she did was she transposed his work specifically to the needs of special kids. And so she kind of distilled, because the work is vast. There's like thousands of Feldenkrais exercises. We call them actually lessons and not
mhm.
exercises, because the brain is actually learning, picking up, and creating new neuronal synapses as you do, because movement is a language of the brain. So she would transpose his work to what they needed. And she was the one that I was drawn to, because there are several Feldenkrais elders, but it was her work that I was really drawn to.
Mm.
Yeah.
Awesome. And let's see. So you also, I'm also a fan of Yamana balls. I got mine here. So you're also a Yamana
Yes.
instructor as well, right?
Yes, I just got certified. Oh my God, it took me 5 years. But yes, absolutely. Fascia. It's not just fascia though, it's also stimulating the collagen in the bone. It's, fascia. It's also a lot of emotional stuff and trauma that's stuck in the fascia because of, the fascia is like the informational highway that where signals travel at 750 miles per hour. And it's just the organ of form. And it's,
Mm.
it's where the signals like the afferent and efferent signals travel from brain to organ, organ to brain. That's the
Yeah.
pathway.
Yeah,
It's
it's giving
like
me
some people think
goosebumps.
it's like people think like it's just sparks in the air or whatever. No, it's an actual
Yeah.
pathway, physical
It's a
pathway.
liquid crystal matrix, and so it's got transduction of the pressure waves, but also electrical things in the fluids inside the core of the collagen matrix is the same fluid that's in our cerebral spinal fluid and our lymph. And so it's like, yeah, this superconductive
Yes.
network is it's
Ex
so amazing.
exclusion zone water, crystalline structure,
Yeah, yeah.
hydrolase, what you call, but my gosh, I couldn't describe it the way you do, Mr. MIT.
And the pressure, so like when you squeeze the crystals, it does the electrical
Yes.
piezoelectricity. And
Piezoelectric.
also the bone and collagen matrix is like a p-n junction, like a semiconductor. So you have the
Wow.
two kinds of crystals that are in a matrix like a diode, and the energy flows across in one direction. And then you also have the periosteum, which is
Yeah.
the skin of the bone, right? And
Right.
so I think that's part of Yamana's philosophy is that when you stimulate the skin of the bone, it does a deep reset on like the muscle attachments and stuff. Like, is it the
Yes.
Golgi apparatus or things like that?
Oh my gosh. Yes, exactly. Exactly. Oh
Yeah.
wow, you are a nerd at these things. Oh
Ah,
my gosh, you're
yeah,
amazing.
well, that's why I wanted to connect because I know you're also a nerd and we would have fun, and maybe
Totally.
somebody would want to enjoy listening to us other nerds.
Yeah. And
So
yeah.
another thing a friend told me, so I met her through Bruno Cicli is somebody I studied with a little bit. He's a French osteopath and expert at lymphatics, lymphatic
Wow.
drainage therapy or LDT, but he also does like deep brain it's sort of like cranial sacral visceral manipulation for the
Oh,
brain. And so
wow.
touching different parts of the brain through the skull, it's mind blowing. I didn't study that stuff, but and working with the bone marrow, but I hung out with him and his wife and his students. I did a class called what's it called? It's his wife's work, which is emotional dialogue, like this kind of internal parts work.
Oh,
It's
like,
called heart-centered therapy.
oh, fabulous. I
And so
love
I
the
did
name.
a bunch of levels. We did some weird stuff in like level 3 and 4 where we're like having conversations with like it was called sacred diaphragms. So it was like the pelvic floor, the respiratory diaphragm, and the tentorium, which is like the diaphragm in the brain between the cerebellum and the
Oh
rest of
my
the brain.
gosh.
And so
Yeah,
we were
yeah,
like
yeah.
talking to the parts of the body and talking to the sphincters and it was a total trip.
That
But
makes so much sense.
back to what I was going to the periosteum. So a friend of mine, I can't recall her name at the moment, amazing therapist who also bought a VibroKit. She said that the periosteum is a endocrine system, part of the endocrine system, that it
Mm,
releases like
hormonal.
endocrine hormones or something like they have to do
Really?
with metabolic, like I don't know if it's the blood sugar or something. It's some kind of newish discovery in the last 5 or 10 years.
Oh,
So Bruno Cicli is like constantly looking at the literature and staying up with the latest cutting edge.
yeah.
I also connected with him around the prana wave stuff that I was working on.
Oh,
So the
yeah.
this 10 6 per minute or the zero point 0.1 hertz resonance wave that's found in HRV, but it's part of the nervous system and also like in the lymphangion pulses like there's these kind of cascading smooth muscle waves that happen in the lymph system and that can entrain also to this frequency and different palpatory things and the craniosacral,
Yeah.
long tide and things like that can also be related to these frequencies that show up in HRV.
Yeah.
So
I really
Bruno was
think
trying to
that,
get a,
yeah.
go ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead. No, Bruno was trying
Oh,
to,
so Bruno was trying to publish a paper about it was like zero point 0.1 hertz, the master frequency. Um,
wow.
and so I was like, oh, maybe we can collaborate on it. But he had some trouble getting it reviewed. Like it was a little bit too, I don't know, cutting edge for they're trying to connect.
Before it's time or something like that.
Yeah, yeah, which I can relate to. But the periosteum at being a part of the endocrine system, I was just like, what? And I didn't even know what the periosteum was, earlier in my career because as you know,
Mhm.
I was doing computer programming and
I
stuff as an
know.
engineer, and the bodywork stuff was just a hobby on the side. I went to
Yeah.
massage school at Patricia Kramer's school,
Mhm.
another KSer from the in the World School of
Oh,
Massage in San Francisco when I graduated from my electronic music program at Stanford when I was like 22 or something. And I was
oh
like, I
my
want to go to
gosh.
massage school. So I did a 6 week intensive where I learned anatomy and physiology and basic Swedish massage and stuff. And um, but later on in San Francisco, I did a weekend with Bonnie Bainbridge Cohen, who's also just
One of my
amazing.
mentors. One of my
Yeah.
mentors.
And
I
so somebody
recite
in
her
that
work a
class, like
lot. Yeah.
some of her students, we were doing these palpatory exercises. It was like bones of the axial skeleton of the lower limbs or something like that. And she's like, okay, now we're gonna palpate the layers of tissue and like, okay, here's the skin layer, the muscle, the lymph, the fascia, and then she's like, now let's feel into the periosteum. Let's feel into the bone marrow. I was just like, what? Like it completely blew my
Yeah.
mind. I was just like, you can do that? Like you can palpate like below the skin into,
Yeah.
feeling somebody's bone marrow or that just completely blew my mind. Like
Yeah.
to have that practical. And then I was like, oh, periosteum, what? Like
Yeah.
it's the interface
I
between the bone and the
I love her
so
work. I
I'll
love
never
her
forget
work.
that.
I mean, if I had like if I had another 2 years, of course I could do anything, right? But I would go through a certification course under her, Bonnie Bainbridge Cohen. I
Hmm.
love her work so much. And
Yeah, I
it's so intuitive, it's extensive, and it's the whole body. And pretty much it's like each organ has its own language and its own brain. And I love the approach that she has. She could look at a person and you could say, oh, the heart is too high and it's, the kidney is overtaking it and things like that.
mm,
You could read a person but by just looking at them and see what the organ is
wow.
thinking or doing.
Yeah.
But also the part of her work that I am really studying more extensively now is the fluid system because the fluid system, fascia, everything. I recently interviewed Veda Austin on my podcast.
Oh wow.
I don't know if you know her,
I
but
didn't Oh, I know who she is. Yeah, I didn't see that you did that. I'll have to watch it.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
she's
think
amazing.
yeah, it's just audio, but I guess it was 3 months ago now. And her work with water is just amazing. I mean, it's like easy water. And this is such biohacking speak. It's like in biohacking, we have machines that simulate the easy water or that have the bioidentical signal for easy water. When you inhale it, it kind of
Yeah, that one that the red
interacts with
light
not the red light, not the Vi light, but the easy water, the
okay.
Nano V, but the Ang3 Nano V.
Nano V, yeah.
Yeah, so when you inhale it, there's a signal. There's like, I don't know, I forget how many wavelength, because I also interviewed the co-founder on my podcast, and I think it's a really long wavelength into the water. And then when you inhale it, it kind of interacts with the nasal mucosa, so the fluid system, and then it yeah,
Hmm.
it generates easy
So
water. So
cool.
and which would result in protein folding. So anyway, yeah, so water. For me, it's like fluid system, the bacteria in our body, because we are only 10% human. We have 30 to 100 trillion microbes in us that have been studying us longer than we've studied them. We've been studying, so there's like a
Yes.
huge place for them in biology, in life, period. You know,
Symbiosis, yeah.
symbiosis. And in fact, we call them symbiotics. That's what they
Hmm.
are. Yeah, so that and we're learning so many things about the biology. It's just amazing. To be alive at the time.
Yeah. What else did I want to talk about? I guess yeah, I'd like to well, I mean the vibrations of how water can receive sound waves and
Yeah,
intentionality and stuff. And so I could
totally.
imagine there's something with the VibroKit where you could play certain frequencies that
Yeah.
would go deeply into the body, like different harmonics of, but also, so, my engineering background, people talk about, what is it, the solfeggio, 432 hertz and all this, numerology stuff. I'm also like an astrologer and into weird esoteric things.
I
But
saw
the other
that.
side of me is like, people just made up these numbers and, it's a placebo effect that it's like, it's not the frequency itself, it's the intention behind the frequency that's actually making it work. Like, so
Right.
that's kind of my engineering grouch is kind of just like, wait a sec, that's not like that doesn't make sense. So I'm of two minds of, well, not really. I mean, that's my opinion. All these things are the cymatics and the other things that it's cool. Like, yes, things resonate and sound and frequency is very powerful, but the
And
frequencies that you
yeah.
choose, I mean, when you go to biology, like, yes, there are like protein like wavelengths and things. Like, there's this woman, her and her husband is called like Amalfi Consulting, Irina Kosic. Do you know who she is?
No, wait.
Um, sh Yeah, you'd be really into her work. I discovered her little PhD thesis booklet when I was at MIT, and I just kind of treasured it on my bookshelf. And so it's this model. It's called the resonant recognition model. And so it's the idea that the wavelengths of the protein, because so protein amino acids are like have different, like, it's kind of like a bead on a on a chain, right? And you have the different proteins on a string. And so you
Mhm.
can think of it like a necklace or something that has these different kind of beads on it. And the beads
Yeah.
have different electrical valence electron properties, right? So the different chains on the amino acids give them different properties of how they can interact with other molecules, right?
Okay.
And so if you have like a chain of these proteins, so lysine, cysteine, etc. You can analyze the frequency of that chain. So this is like where my engineering mind, it makes so much sense to me, but like to explain it with a metaphor, um, have you ever heard the term Fourier transform?
No.
So it's an amazing mathematical thing that's used all over physics, and it's for analyzing vibrations and harmonics. So it's this theory that every frequency can be divided up into a sum of sine waves, basically. So like when you look at like a music and you see the stereo equalizer, you have like the bass, the mids, the trebles, and each of those are different sine waves. So the symphony of music is composed of individual frequencies. And so
Okay.
that's the Fourier transform is a mathematical analysis where you can kind of switch between time and frequency by rotating in the imaginary plane. It's like total head trip. So so if you have a vector of time series, like the wave goes up and the wave goes down, and that's your sine wave oscillating through time, that's like a wave file, right? If you have a digital
Yeah.
wave file, it has all of the, like, it's like beads on a string, but it's approximating how the wave goes up and down or forward and backwards to create sound. And so you could take that and if you have like a wave file that say like 1024 uh, numbers that give you this thing, then you can do the Fourier transform and you flip it in the imaginary domain 90 degrees, and you get 1,000 frequency bands instead. So you can look and see, okay, here's the bass, here's the mids, here's the treble. So it's this really cool way of analyzing frequencies from one dimension of time to another dimension of frequency. And it's invertible, so you can switch back and forth. And that's how we get those things in our stereo system. Like, oh, turn up the bass, turn up the mids. Um, Digitally, that's how it works. It's different when it's analog electronics.
Uh-huh.
And so the same thing can be done spatially, which is just like, what? You could palpate the periosteum. That was like another mind-blowing moment for me. So you have the wave in space, and so here's a protein chain, And that can be analyzed for its spatial frequencies instead of time frequencies, which would be like the timbre and the pitch and the things like that. The spatial frequencies are like how the vibrations can interact with the string in space rather than in time. And it's the same math. And so you can analyze a string of proteins in space and get the frequencies that they resonate with. And so the resonant recognition model is a theory that all proteins, so it basically answers the question, how do proteins find each other in the fluid, right?
Yeah.
There's this notion of like random Brownian motion where the molecules are just bouncing around and they accidentally bump into each other and the lock hits into the key and boom, it's biology. But we know that it's not random and that there's electromagnetic resonance happening. And so this model it shows that there's a recognition between a protein and its receptor site through the spatial frequency. And so they kind of go da 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 da, and they resonate like tuning forks in space, and they find each other because they have complementary phase angles. So it's like one is like kind of 180 degrees off the frequency, and so those frequencies can transmit through water through in the visible light spectrum. So instead
Yeah.
of sound waves, they're light waves, which is all it's all kind of the same, right? Electromagnetism, radio
Yes,
wave.
exactly.
Now they're
Yeah.
all just different wavelengths. And so
Right.
when you
Right.
zoom in onto that really small wavelength, it's no longer sound, it's light. And electromagnetism of the vibrating photons and stuff.
Yeah.
So
The
this
electron.
idea is that you can analyze any chain of proteins or DNA chains as well, the chain of sugars that are on the DNA chain, and get a frequency analysis. And so her work, Irina Kostic and her husband, shows that like you take a sequence of protein that in its receptor, and you can analyze them and show that they have complementary the same frequency, but like one goes up and the other goes down, and that's how they kind of fit together. And it can
Okay.
be applied to not just to light waves of like color, which travels through water very easily, visible light, but also like radio waves, like megahertz, like Wi-Fi, gigahertz kind of radio, X-ray, microwave, all that kind of stuff. So it can be applied to all these different octaves of this biological. So you can say, oh, there's a drug that affects this protein. Guess what? The drug and the protein have the same complementary frequencies, and that's how it works. Like, so it's kind of decoding like the kind of musical biology of the frequencies of the body, and it gives it like a mathematical basis where it's like not just some conceptual thing, but actually can be measured,
Yeah. That
tested.
yeah,
So
that's really interesting. That is so interesting. I'm not sure if you know about the work that I'm trying to do aside from biohacking. It's called Germanic healing knowledge. It's called
yeah.
Germanische Heilkunde, right? So formerly known as Germanic New Medicine or German New Medicine, which
Hmm.
I don't like to use that moniker anymore because it's not German, it's not new, it's not medicine. Though when it was named, it was aptly named in the 80s as the new medicine. It's kind of like an
Hmm.
affront to, conventional medicine
It's
because
very
it's
German.
the new kind. Yeah, exactly. But now it's like it's been, it's been decades since then. It's like Germanische
Right.
Heilkunde means that it's based on the Germanic healing knowledge. So it goes way, way back, all the way to like Norse mythology and the way Odin would pass down his songs. Apparently, he had these odes and songs it would be passed down like orally through the generations. And one of the odes, is something like a song that will put out the fire or something like that. So it's a healing song that puts out the fire.
Hmm.
And I gave a talk on this, and it has to do with Dr. Hammer, who was the founder of Germanische
Right.
Heilkunde, right? Dr. Hammer. And the first pillar of Germanische Heilkunde is the five biological laws of nature. And basically, we love cancer, right? Cancer is part of a sensible biological special program. So we understand exactly why cancer shows up. It's not an anomaly. It's not toxins that are being, contained in a tumor. It's an actual, biological response, a survival response. and it's there to save us. It's not there to kill us. So that's the first biological, that's the first pillar. The second pillar is this song that he wrote his wife in 1976, 5 years before Germanshe Heilkunde was discovered. He discovered in 81 because his son died in his arms and he had cancer 3 months later. And that's where he studied it. But in 1976, he had been already 20 years married to his wife, who was the love of his life. And they went through so much turmoil because she got pregnant early while they were still in medicine. They're still studying, but she got pregnant early, and Dr. Hammer kind of got into this biological conflict of, oh no, how am I going to support my wife? I don't have money, and all of that. And all of that emotional turmoil, all of the survival response was to be on his toes and finish the course and, find a job and everything. It basically is for performance. But they had a hard time for 20 years. I think by that time they already had 3 or 4 kids. I'm not sure, but 4 kids at the age of like 26 or something like that, 25. Already had 4 kids. They weren't rich, right? So they were kind of struggling. He wrote this song called Mein Studentenmädchen, My Student Girl. And it was a song about his love for her and the turmoil and everything and all of that. It was 5 stanzas. And by some weird reason, his work had started to kind of spread around the world. And by the year 2006, 2007, it was discovered by this musician, composer, artist named Giovanna Conti, who had cervical cancer. And cervical cancer, we know is actually because of a sexual frustration conflict. It's because of a husband that's cheating, husband that left you, or got someone else pregnant, or doesn't want to have your baby. So we know exactly the causes of all cancers. But anyway, she found the book of Dr. Hummer, and then before finding Dr. Hummer's book, she had already been studying the works of Chopin and Liszt and Beethoven. And she was trying to dissect each one and trying to see what drives musicians to compose the work that they do in the way that they do. And she kind of bridged the emotional output that expressed itself in the music. So basically, if you heard their music, you would know if someone is going through a schizophrenic attack, or if someone is going through depression, or if someone has anxiety but isn't healing. So
Hmm.
that's how she researched that. So she used that when she met Dr. Hammer, she heard about his song, and she used kind of that framework to analyze the song. And she discovered that the song is an exact what you call this, it mirrors the biphasic system of all diseases, of everything in nature, goes in 2 phases,
Hmm.
like just like circadian rhythm, right? Day and night, right?
Yeah.
Sleep and wake, all of that,
Yin and yang.
right? Yin and yang, yeah, exactly. Plus minus, male, female, all of that stuff. So she said that it was a perfect mirror image of what we call in Germanische Heilkunde, the Hummer compass, that whenever there's a disease, a sensual biological special program that exists in all of nature, is that whenever there is a biological conflict, a trigger, let's say your wife passed away or your son passed away, it triggers a biological conflict, puts you in a conflict active phase. So there's some sort of organ that responds to the distress. Okay.
Yeah.
And basically that organ is trying to perform for you, trying to help you survive. And when it resolves, that organ goes back to homeostasis. Therefore, it needs to make itself whole again to come back to the original. So there's a conflict active phase. When it resolves, there's a healing phase that exists in all of nature. So this is the second biological law of nature, the biphasic system of all sensible biological special programs. And she found that that song was the exact replica of that system, and it just accidentally. But not only that, accidentally he found that one of his clients' daughters, who was a 7-year-old kid with, I think, hepatitis, and she had been sick for months. She resonated with the song. Because it was recorded by a choir. He had a choir sing the song, and he put it on CD, and then this little kid said, I just want to listen to it over and over 24/7. And she got well. She got
Wow.
well. And he was like, "What is this? Oh my gosh!" And now he has a book this thick in German or French. I have the French version with case studies of Ewing sarcoma, anxiety, and in dogs, scleroderma, myocarditis, heart attack, myocardial infarct, all of these biological. So apparently, and it kind of ties in with what you're saying. Apparently, there's something called the archaic melody. So the archaic melody is the vibration of the cosmos that also resonates within our all natural bodies, including our own biology. And when there is some sort of perturbance or some sort of expression or whatever, our biological conflicts can be expressed or represented in sound. And there's a particular sound that our bodies will kind of express, and that is our archaic melody or something like that. And this is kind of like the song that Odin sings that puts out the fire. It kind of heals or something like that. But the song was recorded by him. He wrote the song, he sung it as well. So he performed later on, he performed it and recorded it in 432 hertz. So apparently the magic is in the composer writing the song and performing it. And that person's archaic melody will be imbued into the music and the words. And anyone going through a biological conflict, their biology will resonate with a sound and will understand the biphasic system and will go on the natural course. And I
Hmm.
thought that was like so profound. And I think you, in a way, you kind of, explained that in the math of it or something. I don't know.
Yeah, well, it's a little bit different, but I've totally got goosebumps as you're describing. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I heard of German new medicine. So I was working with this German medicine thing about 15 years ago,
Yeah.
um, around also cancer and HIV/AIDS. And so
Yeah.
Dr. Heinrich Kramer, I helped him publish his book. It's called The Silent Revolution in um, Cancer and AIDS Medicine.
Based
And
on
so you,
GNM, based on German New Medicine.
no, it's completely
Oh,
different. It's
okay,
based
got
on
it.
the mitochondria and basically that there's a symbiosis like Lynn Margulis' work. You know, she was the founder of this kind of Gaian symbiosis theory. She was the wife of Carl Sagan. And
Okay.
she was this pioneering female scientist, and people didn't take her seriously because she was a woman, unfortunately,
Right.
at the
Okay.
time. And then later she was vindicated of like, oh wait, your theory is actually amazing. And
Wow.
so is that the primordial archaic cells fused with to create the prokaryotes, right? Or the I don't know if
Right.
I got it right, the eukaryotes and the
You
prokaryotes.
carry
So
it.
that same thing happened with plants. Like there, this weird bacteria, the archaea somehow fused with the other bacteria and gave it the ability to breathe oxygen. And that
Wow.
transformed the whole
Yeah.
biosphere. So the ability to process oxygen. And so the mitochondria are like little furnaces that can, burn oxygen and sugar. Um, and so instead of fermenting, you have the oxidative phosphorylation, and that created a whole, other form of life on Earth. And so the idea is that the mitochondria have a ancient bacterial DNA as well as
Right.
the human DNA, and they've kind of exchanged in a symbiotic way. And that you can see which part of the program is switched on. Is it the emergency backup program or is it the modern program? And you can measure it in the with blood tests like the LDH. Isoenzyme types and stuff can tell you it's a lactase dehydrogenase. So it's about the fermenting stuff in the metabolism, particularly the liver and such. But it's a whole other
But wait,
podcast we could talk
what do
about.
what do you mean like old system and new system? Do you mean old brain and new
So
brain? Or
I mean the old bacterial DNA and the new bacterial DNA.
so the old would be
Um,
the
so
would
so it's
mitochondria.
basically like the program, the metabolic program for fermentation is like, how alcohol is made. When you ferment sugar without oxygen, you get alcohol. And when you burn sugar with oxygen, you get the oxidative phosphorylation. So it's kind of two different ways of creating energy through fermentation or through oxidation.
Okay,
And
got
so
it.
the fermentation is the ancient program, and cancer cells use that because there's a decoupling of the different sides of the genome, of the mitochondrial genome. So it's like either the archaic part or the bacterial part. Because archaea is like a other kind of kingdom, right? Like you have
Yeah.
animal, bacteria, it's that plant. So archaea is like a weird, it's sort of like bacteria, but they're not. And they was only kind of discovered, I don't know, 50 years ago or something. So
Yeah.
it's kind of, so you have algae, archaea, bacteria. So it's this other kind of proto-ancient bacteria that is now symbiotically incorporated inside our mitochondria. And
That's
so the
interesting.
genome, the
Yeah.
genome in our nucleus, our human genome,
Hmm.
contains bacterial DNA inside it. So half of it is in the mitochondria and half of it is in the nucleus. So it's been split
Oh,
across, and it
interesting.
can activate and switch on and off depending on the environmental circumstances and needs. And also there's a cyclical nature, like you're saying, where this kind of yin and
Yeah.
yang. And so this also reminds me of inner dance, which is the
Oh, yeah,
we
yeah,
spoke
yeah.
about briefly. So this pendulation of going into the sympathetic activation and the
Yeah.
parasympathetic relaxation. So it's like, sleeping, dreaming, waking,
Yeah.
sleeping, dreaming, waking, and it's the rhythm of life. And when people get out of touch with the rhythm, they can be reminded of that flow, and then they can like get back into their cycle. So that's what I see. That's what I
That
hear you
yeah.
describing with this music. So I didn't
That's
know German
exact.
New Medicine
Yeah.
had a musical side to it. I honestly, like when I first heard of it back, 20, 15 years ago, I was kind of like, is that just like a weird way of blaming the victim? Like they're just saying, oh, you got cancer because you have unresolved emotions and it's your
Yeah,
fault
yeah.
or something. And so I think that's a
Exactly.
very limited surface understanding of it.
Yeah,
Obviously,
exactly.
there's a lot
Exactly.
more to it.
Yeah, there's
So
much
it's cool
more. I
that,
mean, yeah, I mean the biphasic. Yeah, exactly. That's what exactly you're saying is the day and night, parasympathetic, sympathetic, the autonomic nervous system. We call it sympathicotonic and then your vagatonic. So
yeah,
sympathicotonic during the day, there's cortisol, adrenaline, norepinephrine. You don't feel any symptoms because
exactly.
it's all about performance, right? Even when you're working out, that's like the best metaphor. When you're working out, you don't feel any symptoms. You feel good because you
Yeah,
have
it's
to
like
perform.
catabolic or anabolic as
Catabolic,
well.
anabolic. Exactly, exactly. So again,
Is it breaking
biphasic.
down or is it building up?
And then at night, it's vagatonic. You're sleeping. That's when you're sore, your muscles are building and your tissues are repairing. So for us, it's like what I see with what you're saying about the bacteria, like the new and the old. It's like the old creates the tumor that's like an old, super old
Yeah,
brainstem thing is like we're gonna the organ is adapting, changing because it needs to create a mass in order to secrete, let's say, more hormones in order for you to perform quickly because there's this distressful thing. You have a conflict, so
it's a
let's perform
survival
now.
program. Yeah,
Survival response, exactly.
yeah,
And then the new, because the fourth biological law of nature in Germanische Heilkunde is that microbes don't cause disease, but play a really vital role in the healing phase. They're the ones. So you have this tumor that you no longer need because you resolved your conflict. So what are you going to do with it? Well, it breaks down just the way zits are broken down,
yeah.
boils and
Compost.
particles are broken down. Guess what breaks them down? Bacteria, right?
Yeah,
Pus and
and
everything breaks.
fungus.
And fungus, exactly. Yeah. And viruses are there too, but actually it's more mycobacteria, fungus, and the actual bacteria
Yeah, yeah,
break it down. So that's like the old and the new is what I'm seeing, that everything is kind of, threading together. It's
yeah. It's the
amazing. And
flow.
yeah, this biology, I'm just so crazy about it, really.
So,
That when I found Germanische Heilkunde, it kind of in a way, it made obsolete some of my biohacking thinking, because it's
mm,
like, well, now we know what the brain's thinking. We know what the psyche's thinking. We know what each organ is there for. they're there for survival. That's it. The psyche has only two things that it's looking for. Am I in danger or am I safe? That's it. Those two.
Right.
And you know, when you know what the brain's thinking, what the psyche's thinking, you can kind of biohack that. You can kind of reverse engineer it and control it.
Yeah,
It's,
give it what it needs to feel safe and
yeah, but nip it at
nourish
the root.
it.
It's like, well, okay, so when you have a conflict, and of course I'm just saying this, let's say, your kid dies. It's a huge conflict, right?
Mhm.
And for sure you'll have your ovaries or your breasts will respond, survival response, because they want to make a new kid, whether or not you're
Mhm.
lactating, whether or not you're 20 or 80, you're going to get that
Mm.
cancer, right? So knowing that information, you're like, you know what? You don't need to grow a mass. You could tell your psyche, you could tell this age-old programming that, evolved over billions of years that no, I'm good. I'm good. You don't need
Yeah,
to,
like thanks for
you
your
don't need,
concern, but we can do this a
exactly.
better way. Let's work together
Exactly.
to, to find a balance, a homeostasis. So there's
Yeah.
another thing in the back of my head here, which you may already know about the Navio cell danger response theory.
No,
It's
what is
I'm
that?
not extremely familiar with it, but yeah, it's the Navio. It's Navieux. My French pronunciation is horrible.
N
And
NAV. What again? NAV
IEUX.
Navia. Okay.
Yeah. And it's something to do. I'm probably getting this wrong, but it's something about this metabolic danger theory that like the cells respond. Are things under threat? There's a certain program, and are they not? And it's a biphasic cycle that happens in the metabolism in the mitochondria. And so you can analyze disease based on the. So it must be very complementary to German new medicine.
For
Um,
sure. For
so
sure.
I'd be curious to get your take on it. I think I have a paper somewhere in my Dropbox in my Dragon
I mean,
treasure hoard.
was it Thomas Seyfried who said that cancer is a metabolic disease? It absolutely is.
Well, it's Otto Warburg.
It's
You know about his
It's
work?
Otto Warburg. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I think it was him. And yeah, Thomas
Because
Seyfried.
he's the one that
They're
discovered that
all,
cancer cells are operating anaerobically. And
yes.
he was like, why is that? Why are they going to this different form of metabolism? And yeah, so Heinrich Kramer, the guy that I was working with his book, um, his theory was kind of taking Warburg's stuff and explaining how it worked with the mitochondrial genome with this archaic and bacterial switching, and
Yeah,
then what causes the switch, like of immune deficiency and other stuff. There's kind of two sides of the immune system, like the type 1 and the type 2, like in the with the T cells and stuff. There's more than two types now, but at the time it was kind of a big discovery. So like one kind, it does the cell mediated defense, which is like they use nitric oxide gas as little micro bombs to destroy bacteria. And that's what happens when somebody gets leprosy. It's that system goes crazy, and all the little micro bombs make your fingers fall off, right? Because there's so much inflammation. But it's nitric oxide that's being used as a weapon for cellular defense. And so this was all very new, cutting edge stuff in the 90s, or they
Molecule
discovered
of the
nitric
year,
oxide. Remember? Yeah,
1992. Yeah,
yeah, for the
molecule
blood pressure
nitric oxide. Yeah,
vasodilation signaling
vasodilation
molecule. But
and
then it also turned out
bronchodilation.
it's used as a weapon to create inflammation to destroy mycobacteria and intracellular parasites that are very microscopic. So that's the Th1, the type 1 immune defense of the T cells. It does the cell mediated attacks, which create microinflammation. And then there's the type 2 immune defense, which is kind of long range missiles, which is antibodies. It's the antibody complement system. And so the antibodies kind of go and they hook on to the to like
Yeah.
the the other stuff, the bacterial, the worms, or other kind of things. So it was an evolutionary additional defense where if the microbomb inflammation isn't effective, And if it goes too haywire, you'll get necrosis. You'll destroy the tissue. So that's not good for the organism. So there's this evolutionary adaptation of having this other mechanism to have antibodies in the bloodstream that can do a kind of cleaner way of killing stuff. And then you can,
Wow.
instead of getting necrosis, you get the, other forms of what is it, like apoptosis and things like that.
Yeah.
So
That's
so
interesting.
that
Yeah.
was first found in fish because the first immune system was found in sponges in the ocean, and they have those because the sponges can get like parasites of mycobacteria and things like that. And then worms were invading fish, and so then the fish had to develop a way to get rid of the worms, and the antibody stuff could like attack the worms without destroying the whole tissue systems. So it's like an evolutionary
Yeah.
biology of how the immune system evolved, and that was
Right.
what I learned from this Dr.
Yeah.
Kremer's work of the and so the switching mechanism of the immune system to be like, oh, hey, there's too much inflammation. We got to call the emergency backup system. Where
Mhm.
the smoke alarm went off. Now let's bring out the long range missiles for the antibodies. The system that switches that is the cysteine. The chemistry term is thiol. They're sulfhydryl molecules with sulfur hydrogen, which are like the key antioxidants, like glutathione,
Oh,
right?
okay.
So glutathione is the master antioxidant switch inside the cells it's like a thermostat or the smoke alarm. And so if there's too much inflammation, then the glutathione gets depleted and therefore it signals a cascade of other things to happen to switch on. And then until the glutathione can get put back again because the antioxidant oxidant is kind of like they can switch back and forth, right? It can be
Yeah.
recycled through like vitamin C and other stuff where the glutathione can be regenerated from its parts. Like it splits in two. You have the two sulfur molecules, and then they bind together when they get oxidized to create the sulfur cross-linking in the proteins. And so it's a signaling mechanism that's used on like the DNA level, basically,
Mhm.
for kind of switching things on and off in these different ways. And nitric oxide is also used for signaling because it's a gas molecule that can pass through the cell membranes. So it can go anywhere in the body and it can carry a charge of being positive, negative, or neutral. So it's like this really cool messenger chemical as a neurotransmitter. Nitric oxide is kind of like a primordial neurotransmitter.
Yeah.
Um,
And that's part of biohacking a lot, like nitric oxide, glutathione, all
yeah,
that.
for sure.
Except that when we studied GNM, GHK, Germanische Heilkunde, there's no such thing as an immune system,
Mhm.
because we follow like the fifth biological law of nature, which is a quintessence that everything has a biological purpose and nothing is
Mhm.
malignant, nothing is benign, and there's no such thing as metastasis. So if we look at that, it's like if it's the fish, then that's kind of like foreign invaders attacking you literally that you really need a defense against, right? It's
Mhm.
kind of like pests attacking, your crops and everything. You really have to
Mhm.
defend against them. But it's different from a psychobiological root cause of organ adaptation. Like your organs
For sure.
are adapting to distress, right? A survival distress. That's different from being attacked by a foreign invader. So therefore, when we look at like an organ adapting as a response to a distress, we don't look at it as we need to fight it. We don't like the necrosis and everything. It's there for a reason. And I forget
Mhm.
now what leprosy is, but anyway, I had a consultee with breast gland cancer, and it also was kind of a disfigurement conflict that kind of hit the dermis, which comes out as a lot of pus. That's where zits and carbuncles and boils come from. And when it heals, there's blood and pus and smelly bacteria and everything.
Mhm.
And when it comes to the breast glands, it can look really ugly and the woman feels disfigured. Therefore, when she sees
Mhm.
it and she feels more and more disfigured, the organ kind of responds to that perception. And so it can get
Sure.
really icky, ugly, and everything. And sometimes there's necrotic flesh. And
Mhm.
I did have a consultee with like a 9 month long program where there was necrotic flesh already and everything. And for us, it
Wow.
was like it's not leprosy or anything, it's just the tissue adapting and to your perception that it's ugly because it really is. It's hard to control it. And so
Mm.
it was kind of the thing to do there was like to say it's beautiful. And I would always say, oh, it's so beautiful. It's beautiful. It's smelly, but it's smelly beautiful. It means that there's bacteria that's alive and everything, but it's kind of
Mm.
hard to look at it as a senseful biological program when it's like so ugly and
Yeah.
busy and painful and everything. But yeah, we like if it's leprosy or anything, we don't look at it as like the T cells you need to attack the pathogens. We don't call them pathogens either. They're
Mm.
there
Wow.
as symbiotics. They're there for a very specific purpose. We call them our microsurgeons because they know when not to cross the tissue. That's like, the next layer of tissue where a human surgeon would probably miscut and sever
Hmm.
some sort of artery or vessel or whatever. The bacteria do it so cleanly. They know where to go and where not to go because they're
Because
programmed
based on frequency.
based on frequency. They're born for that. They evolved with that, so they know exactly where to go. So that's for us. It's like there's no
Wow.
such thing as immunity. We only have. That's why I recently had a talk called the psyche. The psyche is the key to immunity. I gave a talk and then I defined what
Hmm.
immunity is. And immunity is exactly that, adaptive and innate immunity. You have T cells, macrophages, natural killer cells, dendritic cells, mast cells, all of that stuff. And it's always to kill the foreign invaders and killing pathogens and everything. But if we look at them as like fungi, viruses, bacteria, toxins, well, toxins, that's mechanical, right? I mean, if you drink cyanide, your organs melt.
Hmm.
So that's not included. We're looking at organic stuff. Um, why would we develop immunity against them when there are 100 trillion of them inside us and all around us? We are only 10% human. So it doesn't sit well, or it just doesn't make sense that we would have to protect against them when they are inside us. Yeah. So
Yeah, and I mean, there's certain healthy things like the different, I forget the words like transfer factor thing. Like there's things that we need the bacteria to stimulate our body to create, right? In the all the
period.
probiotic stuff and
For
yeah,
everything,
yeah.
like
So it's
the
like a healthy stimulation that they're pushing the buttons. And I think there's a
yeah,
vagus nerve connection with like the way the bacteria in the gut stimulate the vagus nerve, and then it releases different neurotransmitters in the brain.
neurotransmitters. Most probably. I mean, they've been around longer than we have. I mean, physical in the physical 3D world. They've been around longer
Yeah.
than us. They're ancient.
But
So,
it's a real mind trip to, I know there's the Pasteur thing, where
oh yeah,
he said, oh, on his deathbed, who's the other guy who,
terrain
was,
theory, the
yeah,
French
yeah,
guy.
there's like
Yeah, I
it's the
forgot his name.
milieu.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So yeah,
exactly.
that's a real head trip to
Isn't
be
it a
like,
head
oh,
trip?
like turn it all inside
But
out. And so I
yeah,
it's a little bit file 13 for me. Like that, I think there's definitely some truth in that. But I think if it's not understood fully and people think they understand it, it could be dangerous, kind of being like,
yeah,
I know the
absolutely.
truth. And then it's like, oh, wait, oops, you died because I tried some experiment on you. So it's kind of like,
It is.
gotta
There
be
is that.
cautious.
And the cancer patient, she passed away. And the thing is, we know when they will. It's just that tissue expires. I mean, if you have an energy deficit, like if your vital energy, your cells are expiring, and it's just common sense. If there's too much energy that you require and you don't have a lot of it or you can't create it, you're going to expire. That's just
Yeah.
it. And
Because
we look at
the output is greater than the input.
exactly. And we don't look at the tumor. We look at the life situation of the person. That's where it comes from. The tumor does not come out randomly. There's a reason for it. Nature selects. I mean, oh gosh, my cat. Darling.
I was like, what is this
I know, is there a
magical
big
white fluff?
a big white butt that you see, fluffy butt? That's my cat. That's my Norwegian forest cat. But yeah.
Uh,
But yeah, so it's not random. Nature responds only when needed. So it's not like, if, I have people who are like, oh my God, I might get a heart attack. I'm so stressed at work and everything. I'm like, did you lose a wife? No. Did you lose your job? No. Did you get demoted and did your position get given to a younger man? No. Did you lose territory? No. Did you lose property? No. Then you're fine. You're not going to get a heart attack because you don't just, the heart doesn't just respond out of nothing, out of like, oh, I'm stressed at work. If that were true, then all men would die of heart attacks, right?
Hmm.
But that's just
It's
not
still,
true.
to be honest, I mean, I'm open-minded to this, but it's hard
Yeah.
for me to wrap my head around completely because, like I said, my initial reaction to this, like 15, 20 years ago, was like, oh, it's kind of just
Yeah.
like blaming the victim, and I know that's
Yeah.
like not the truth of it, but it's hard for me to kind of get beyond that obstacle in
Yeah.
my head.
But it's so interesting because it's almost 100% true. You're almost like psychic. It's like, oh, I have this shoulder pain on the left side and what you call it's on the neck. It's on the neck and the shoulder and I'm right-handed. I'm like, "Oh, so your mom thinks you're stupid." Yeah, how'd you know?
Yeah, I mean, I fully believe that. I have a friend who does body work like that, Mark
Yeah.
Haviland in San Francisco, and so yeah, there are patterns to everything, right? Like as an
Yeah.
astrologer, it's like
Yeah,
yes, when you
yeah.
have Mercury and Venus together, it means one thing. So like yes, there are patterns to life, but I guess where I get cautious, just being this is part of my
Yeah,
my
yeah, yeah.
makeup personally, is like I want to be 100% sure before I give advice to somebody else. So it's like, but to be like, yeah, that could be a possibility, like could be very helpful, right? To be like, oh, let me
Yeah.
look at this. Like, does that feel true? Does that resonate? So it's like maybe 95% of the time it could be true, but there still could be some 5% thing that we don't know, we don't understand, maybe bigger than
Absolutely.
5%. I don't know. So,
But
so I'm always
yeah,
cautious of like making like 100% declarations, especially
yeah.
like regarding people's health and stuff. That's a
You could
big
just say
responsibility.
99%, right? But it's a law of nature. And essentially a law of nature means that it applies to everything and it doesn't need evidence, it doesn't need statistics, it doesn't need judges. You basically know that if somebody has a lung nodule in the alveoli, this person is afraid of death. Period. Because that's the way the organs respond to distress. If this person is afraid of death, that's lung cancer.
But so that must have been discovered through some empirical analysis though, right?
Yes,
I mean that's
CT
that's the
scan.
scientific aspect of it of like this, so this is what I'm doing with
Six,
harmonic astrology, studying
60,000
with my
CT
teacher.
scans.
Yeah, yeah. So it's evidence
Yeah.
based.
Yes,
So that's
yes,
the
it
thing. It's
is.
it's it may be a law of nature, but it's evidence based, and so you can say we understand this because of the data has shown this correlation, and so therefore it's not just some superstitious
No, it's not.
thing.
And that's in my talk, the psyche is the key to immunity. I talked about the psyche of a person. What is it? It's like behavior, the mental processes of a person, and also someone's cult influences from someone's cultures, from social influences and all of that, all the way from Plato to Aristotle, to Greek psychology, all the way down to Wundt, who was the first psychologist, first person who called himself a psychologist, to Freud, to Maslow, to all of these psychologists, right? Great, great, great people who kind of tried and they kind of got it accurately in a way, but not in at the level that Dr. Hammer did, just because they didn't have a CT scan. Even people that, in Ayurveda and traditional Chinese medicine, they kind of really got a big chunk of the human bioenergetic system, but
Oh yeah.
to a certain extent, it's still guesswork because they didn't get CT scans. So when traditional Chinese medicine says like worry lives in the spleen and anger lives in the liver and fear lives in the kidney, that's a little bit true, but not quite. Because for the liver, there's a little bit of anger, but primarily the liver is a lack of money. It's a
Hmm.
starvation conflict and a financial starvation conflict. The liver assimilates um, nutrients
Nutrients.
in small
Hmm.
morsels, because you don't have anything to eat and you're poor. That's a perception. Therefore, the liver will create a program like a mass that will secrete more nutrients from the tiny morsels that you're eating because you're not eating. So that's the survival
Interesting.
biological response. For the spleen, it's a conflict with regard to blood because it's a big lymph node, right? And so if you see an
Mhm.
accident and there's a lot of blood, the spleen kind of responds to it, you know. So it's not worry. It really
Hmm.
isn't. Yeah.
Interesting. Well, I'm gonna have
Kidney is fear.
I don't think I can read the book in French or German, but I
Oh,
have to
oh,
go
that's
find out
I
more
have
about
a
this.
I have a book in English. It's a really small book. The Mike didn't mention is the one that's in French, but he has English books. I can send you a PDF of it.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's very interesting, and I also, take it with the cautious grain of salt of being like
Yes, yes.
everything is 100% correct, but because
Right.
we have to try
90,
things and see how does it
99%.
work.
99%. And I've threaded Germanic New Medicine or Germanische Heilkunde with the cosmic stuff. Like so I have my astrology read, like my Batse reading read, my soul blueprint read. It's so interesting because in my Batse it says you are not going to have kids. And whenever you're in a relationship, you have bad luck. So therefore, you're not going to be in relationships. Well, true enough, I'm husband free and child free in this lifetime. So that's my
Mhm.
Batse reading, right? And
Is that the eight pillars?
yes,
Is that what it means?
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
okay.
6 or 8 pillars, I forget. Must be eight. Anyway, yeah, that's a Batse reading. And if you look at Germanische Heilkunde, the conflicts that I had from trauma from when I was, before the age of 6, really led to my organs protecting me from relationships and not having kids, not and removing the maternal instinct and all of that. So it's like, okay, this is my stars for this incarnation. In the 3D level, let us, mechanize and devise a way for the conflict so the organs will match that destiny so that she never has a husband or and therefore she will not have kids. And I find that
Mm.
just so fascinating that, oh my gosh, it's all so aligned and we can explain all of this stuff. Yeah, so there.
Mm. On all the interconnected, yeah, levels and domains, and that we're
Yes,
living out some kind of blueprint or template that our soul decided, for our
that are
incarnation
so
or something.
decided. Exactly.
The other thing that I wanted to connect with around this thread, let's see if I can find it again. Um,
Harmonic astrology, I think.
yeah, no, it was something specific to the heart-centered therapy. So Alea Chikli's work, I think, could be very complementary with German New Medicine, because once you identify, okay, it's this thing we need to look at, like the relationship with this organ, then you can create a dialogue with that organ through parts work, right? So you can bring somebody into a kind of hypnotic type state and then ask them to have a conversation with that part and be like, what do you see? What does it need? How can you come to a loving relationship with this part that may have been ignored? And how can you come into a deeper connection and understanding with that organ? And yeah, I think there's a lot of different modalities like body talk and other kind of
Oh
things where
yeah,
you
yeah,
can
yeah.
connect with that.
Emotion
But so using
code.
this map, yeah, so I saw you mentioned Shinpo on your Facebook, and I was like, "What's that?"
Yes,
I don't know if you want
yes,
to
yes, yes,
talk
yes.
briefly about that.
The art of the heart.
What is
Yeah,
it?
it's a system that's based on ancient Japanese teachings. So basically, it's very close to Zen, but it's a little bit more accessible. It's kind of transposed for real life. So when you get into the course, the lessons are based on real life. It's nothing nothing advanced, whatever meditation or anything like that. But it just elucidates who owns your thoughts. It's
Mm,
very rebellious, and you know how we are into rebellious movements, right? But it's like whistleblower kind of thing. It's like who owns your thoughts really, and what is money really? who owns your money really? And what do, the powers that be, they want you to never have enough money so that you will keep striving to get it. And that's the way they enslave you. That kind of thing. And then to
Mm.
use the laws of nature to attract the flow of it and the flow of everything in life kind of thing. And it's basically um the difference between a happy life and an unhappy life is a centimeter. It's a thought,
Cool.
it's a movement of thought. So it's like
Hmm.
you think you're getting what you want when you do visualizations, but you're actually 1 centimeter off where you really want to be. And you think,
Mm.
you're never getting anything with the visualizations. It's because you're a little off. So the Shinpo is kind of a system that rewires you slowly to get into that mode where, at the thought level, the shift already happens there. And what out pictures is whatever the outcome is of that thought. So, yeah,
Mm. So aligning, calibrating your hologram projector system.
pretty much. Pretty much.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's so cool.
Um,
So cool.
so we've had an amazing conversation for about an hour or
Was
so.
it more? Wow.
Do you mind if
Already?
we talk a little bit more about the VibroKit? So
Yeah.
what my, I created this tool for myself because I didn't want to buy some expensive thing that cost, $10,000. And I was like, I'm going to use my engineering skills. I'll go down to Radio Shack and buy some stuff. Radio Shack doesn't exist anymore now, unfortunately,
Oh,
but
oh, really?
um,
Okay.
yeah, they went out of business. So, and then I thought, oh, hey, other people might like this too. And so I'm like, oh, try this out. And so I've gotten a lot of positive feedback from people who've installed the VibroKit on their own tables, like other body workers and trauma therapists. And I'd like to share this cool technology with more people. And so I'm like, how can I get the word out, to share people like what's possible that you can get this thing and attach it to your table, and it's pretty easy. You just peel off the thing and stick it on, and then you can play whatever music you want. You're not stuck with like, somebody's special, 527 hertz, whatever thing, like you can plug in your own music to. Um, and so, yeah, I thought just talking about it could help get the word out more so that I could, spread the vibro joy. And for me, it's mostly about like pleasure, that it feels good. Like it's
Yeah.
relaxing and it feels good. And so I use the Vibro Kit when I do body work with clients. It creates this kind of platform of relaxation and safety so that they can go deeper. And if I'm doing some kind of deeper fascial stuff, then they could be, felt like painful or invasive or something. Obviously I'm doing it gentle approach and taking my time and stuff. But I find that with the vibration stuff, people are more open and deeper so that I can kind of go deeper faster. So it's like a tool to help create that safety and relaxing environment. Because it's kind of like it's almost like a visceral trust, when you feel that sonic hug, you're just like, I can let go now. And there's a pleasurable feeling too. And so I don't make claims of like, this is doing some scientific whatever. I'm just like, it feels good and like people like it. So that's
Yeah.
my thinking about it. But I'm curious if you could talk a little bit about just, I know, it was in the past that you're not actively using it right now, but if you could just talk a little bit about your experience with it or what you could imagine other therapists, like what type of therapist might really enjoy using this tool, or what type of person might want to just have one in their home if they're kind of into biohacking or fun stuff for relaxation, or
Yeah,
you can
totally.
also be connected with brainwave entrainment like binaural beats and things. So people that are into that, you can get like a embodied binaural beat system or something. So what are your thoughts about the Vibro Kit?
Yeah, it's really cool. You know what? Recently, a friend of mine said, "Hey, you got to buy this table. It's like so amazing because it's like this fancy table that vibrates." And There's a little bit of heat, I think, that comes out of it, and there's music that's attached to it, and it's like $12,000. Oh yeah, sure, maybe no, yeah, no, I'm not gonna buy that, you know. And so it seems like it's really catching on, like this whole thing about sound therapy. It's been around for a bit, but to actually feel it
Yeah.
in your whole body, have a whole body vibration is really healing. By the way, WBV is a biohack, and having it with music and frequency is amazing. Yeah, and I think that the reason the body comes right into parasympathetic is because it's like the vagus nerve, and the water,
Yes.
the information that travels down 750 miles per hour of relaxation. It's like boom, you're right there with the music that you like, right? With the music that relaxes you.
Yes.
What I do with the vibro kit is I put it under, so I have my table, and then I have a pulse electromagnetic fields mat, like a PMF
Hmm.
grounding mat on top of the table that has low Gauss frequency. And then I put the speaker underneath the mat itself instead of
Yeah.
under the table.
Okay.
And it's like so amazing. It's kind of like really a massage, a music massage with electromagnetic, frequencies, grounding and everything. It's like, whoa, what is this thing? It's amazing.
Cool.
Really amazing. What I see, I think it might really pair really well because you said about binaural. There's this technology called the Brain Tap. It's by Dr. Patrick Porter, and it's like a headset that has um light in the ears, binaural, because he's an ultramind silver ultramind student and teacher, and so he also
Okay.
does, he's an NLP master practitioner. So his meditations have a little bit of that. So it's his sound meditation suggestion, and then there's light in the ears and also in the eyes, closed eyes.
Mm.
And supposedly this technology has made autistic nonverbal kids verbal. And I have kids with constellations who are in depression or bipolar anxiety. They use it and they feel amazing. So I'm thinking maybe if we combine, the light technology, PMF, VibroKit, and then,
Hmm.
the binaural, wow, in like 30
And just
minutes, like
turn
going in
it
the
up to 11.
forest, the cave, the brook, the running brook and everything in like 30 minutes. So yeah.
Wow. Yeah, throw some aromatherapy in there
Oh,
and
exactly.
um
Full sensory experience, right? Yeah, totally.
yeah. I have a customer, Mark Keithley, who created his own table with like memory foam and stuff, and he put PEMF stuff inside it. So they have a
Um,
whole, him and his wife and his son, I think, have this center. He'll probably be my next
yeah,
podcast interview person. And so yeah, he bought the Vibro kit as like literally as a kit so that he could create his own thing. So that's
right.
what I also love about it. Like is that it's so versatile that
Yeah,
you could put it on your bed, you could put it on a
yeah,
chair, it doesn't have to be on a table, you could put it on your PEMF mat, so that there's so many possibilities. And I think that's also maybe challenging for people on the market too, is some people I just want to buy the thing, I don't want to have to do something to make it, or think
yeah,
about it, I just want to press play and have the preset playlists. So that's not really my ideal customer. It's the people that are, more creative and kind of cutting edge. Um,
yeah, yeah.
but there's also, have you heard of the Opus? It's a multi-channel vibration bed. It's a really cool design. It's like a
Oh,
hexagon that unfolds into like six triangular platform, and then you fold it back together, and it's like you can carry
oh,
it around. So it's a
no.
portable folding, and so it has like these six things, so it has six different channels of vibration. So they
Wow.
made special music where it's like, it can go up and down the body with different
Ah,
parts of the music, so it's like a multi-channel surround sound recording. And they had,
oh,
some, cool artists do stuff, but they apparently weren't able to build as many as people wanted. And so like it's been kind of odd. I saw on Instagram, there's like thousands of people that, pre-ordered one and never got it. because they
Oh,
weren't able to manufacture. So I was kind of like, I wonder if I could, poach some of those customers
you
and be like,
sh
hey, I got something
yeah,
you could buy today. And, it's not
yeah,
this cool foldable hexagon thing but, it
yeah.
works and it's just as good. So there's a lot of bells and whistles, I think, that, you
Maybe
know,
you could make one, make like an opus or something
I
like it.
thought about it. I actually bought a multi-channel like surround sound
Yeah,
amplifier that I
yeah.
could plug into USB and play it. And so it's
Nice.
possible, but it's yeah, I don't know. It's just the making this super complicated. Also, I don't want to get sued by them
That's
if I'm
true.
like infringing on their patent or something. But
That's
I did experiment with the binaural bilateral stimulation. Like I think I sent you a couple extra transducers that so you could plug in and put it like on the hand, so you could go left, right,
oh yeah, yeah.
or so that's another possibility with the VibroKit of doing yeah, left and right side binaural
Oh
stimulation, or it's not
yeah.
oral, it's bilateral,
That
or
would be
putting it on repeat.
awesome.
So I've experimented with that. Another thing I'd like to do with the VibroKit is there's something called a subharmonic synthesizer. So I don't know if you recall, like when I did my master's degree at Stanford after MIT, I did computer music, and so it's all the sound, digital sound for music and audio.
Right.
Um, because I was really into electronic music and dance music and stuff at the
I
time.
think
It's
I
kind of
remember that.
techno raver kid
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think
from
you did that.
MIT.
Yeah, I remember that. I'm into techno and into trance and all of that too.
Cool. Yeah, I'm thinking about getting back into music production. So when I was a little kid, they had these things called trackers, which were like on the Amiga and Commodore and like really old computers. And people would make these 4-track music sounds, like they had samplers. But it was also like this chip music, this very kind of video game sounds. And people would make these kids. There's a lot of Scandinavian and European kids, and they would have these like hacker programmer competitions where they would make graphics and computer music and make these demos. It was called the demo scene, and there'd be these like super cool, like how far can you push the hardware to make these like cool, trance music and like awesome 3D graphics. And so when I was a little kid, I was just like, what is cool? I gotta like dial with my 9600 baud modem to see if I can download this tracker file to play this cool music. And so I got really into that when I was like like a preteen. Um,
Yeah.
and so now there's modern systems that still use this old framework of creating music in this kind of digital. It's almost like you're programming the music where it goes through these different steps. So it's really good for electronic stuff. And like a lot of jungle and drum and bass was made by this. And
Oh
like there's
yeah?
some cool YouTube videos I found, and I was just like, I want to get back into that and like
Yeah.
program my own electronic music and um, so
It's
anyway,
so
just
cool.
random.
There's like, so there's like meditation music, there's 432, and it's just your standard forest, sea, ocean music and whatever. But actually what I think is cool is like now there are like artists who are kind of trancey or housey music, but they have frequencies in them.
Mhm.
They're like 432 hertz, and if
Mhm.
there's a beat. I forget
Yeah.
now, what is it, 168 beats per minute or something? I forget what it is. But
Hmm.
that kind of thing with a trance, floaty
Yeah. It's
bliss kind
definitely
of
something
thing.
there, like coming back around, like all the sort of
Yeah.
like raver kids going spiritual.
Totally. And I think it's a spiritual experience, really.
It is.
I went to raves and all. I never took the drugs. I did take the alcohol, but not the drugs.
Uh-huh.
But it was the music that was I went there for the music,
Yeah.
really, because
Yeah. I mean,
that's a
sound
real trip.
can
Yeah.
totally change the brainwaves. I mean,
Right?
that's why I like inner dance, because it's like you can take people on these psychedelic journeys just using sound.
Yeah, yeah.
Because all the hardware is inside our brain to do that,
Yeah,
like the endogenous chemicals and
yeah.
yeah.
Kind of like
So
holotropic breath work, and
yeah,
there's sound, the psychedelic, plant medicine and all of that. It's
yeah.
sound that really takes you there. It's the, yeah,
I've seen some things where it's kind of like sort of like psychedelic trance music used for breath work also. Not
yeah.
actual psytrance, but like electronic music where it's like, okay, breathe with the rhythm. And then it has like these kind
Oh,
of mind-opening sounds. So it's like
yeah,
a
yeah, yeah, yeah.
psychedelic journey using breath work and music. So that's a cool thing to explore. So the thing I wanted to share was about this is a vision that I have for kind of version 2 of the VibroKit, which if I had like if I did a Kickstarter or something and I had the capital to do the manufacturing, because I want to manufacture my own amplifier instead of, just buying one that I'm using now. So I could program this sort of thing inside it. So it's called a subharmonic synthesizer. And so it was first invented in like the disco era. So like in order to get bass waves in the clubs, like Studio 54 and stuff, the you can't put bass waves on the record player because the needle will jump too much. So the number, like the frequencies on the bass could only go so low, kind of. At least
Okay.
like back in the day. Maybe it's a little bit different now. I don't know. There's a certain limitation with there too much bass and it'll make the needle skip,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
because you just can't record the wave in the groove. And so they created a subharmonic synthesizer, which meant that you put sound in and it creates bass below, like sub-octave bass. And
Okay.
so it's not there in the recording, but it comes out of the other end of this machine. So you feed it music and it creates bass where it didn't exist.
Wow.
And so they had hardware units that were, using analog electronics like in the 80s. And then now it's all digital. And you can get this for like professional studio mastering stuff. This called like Waves, Bass, Max, and things like that. So I looked at it a couple years ago and I was like, oh, I could do that because like I have a freaking master's degree in electronic music software programming. So I was like, oh, let me just look up the paper. How does that? Oh, I'll implement this here. Blah, blah, blah. So I made a prototype on my computer, so you could play like classical music, and then it comes out with like mega bass.
Wow.
And so
Cool.
I want to put that in the amplifier for the VibroKit, so it has a thing you can switch on. So you're playing music that doesn't have bass, but it's creating it so you can feel it on the table.
Wow, that is so cool. Yeah. I'm thinking like what if we if we play the Mind Should Dance Invention or someone else's like like when you're going through a biological conflict you compose and sing or whatever and make that into a music clip and you listen to that and for your own real self-healing or something
Yeah,
like that, you know,
yeah. Or using your own voice.
using your own
The
voice,
voice, we talk about the vagus nerve and the biohacking and stuff, but the
right?
voice is innervated by the vagus nerve, right? So
Absolutely. The larynx,
if you
yeah,
could create like a vocal sonic feedback loop where it's like your vagal tones are coming out and then being fed back into your body through the
totally.
vibrations.
And with the intention energy carried through the
Yes,
wave, right? Is your
100%.
archaic melody is being carried through the voice by,
Yeah.
whatever encryption of your words. Absolutely, that would be
So
powerful.
I thought about that with the VibroKit, like just having a little lapel microphone and then, singing or talking into it and then feeding it back into the vibrations of the body. It
Yes.
would be a cool application.
An own voice, right? Because it's dangerous if it's
Yeah,
someone else's voice, someone else's encryption
right.
into
But
your
it's your
bio.
own. So it's literally
Yeah.
like vocal biofeedback.
It's your lone harmonic.
Ooh. Yeah.
I know you know that phrase, lone
Oh yeah,
harmonic.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But it is your lone harmonic. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
Now
yeah,
I know what that means when she says lone harmonic. Now, oh, now it makes sense. After this conversation, now it makes sense. Your lone
and
harmonic.
then, even if your voice can't produce, a super low sub bass, right? Because I think our fundamental only goes what, probably like, I don't know how low the voice can go.
Yeah.
But for men, maybe deeper, but you could sing it into this subharmonic synthesizer and take it like 2 octaves below what you can actually sing, and then you feed
Oh,
it. So you'd be modulating it into sub octaves
yeah. That'd be
so you could feel
cool.
it.
Yeah. Imagine if we knew what like the octaves that the organs would run in. Do we know that? Like the frequency of the organs? Do we know? And then we could kind of
I think
tune
there's
our voice to that
Yeah.
frequency.
Well, there's different systems. Again, it's kind of like with the solfeggio stuff, it's
Yes,
like there's
I've
some
seen that.
systems say it's this, it's that, but it's like how much of it is physics and how much of it is metaphysics of like
Right.
our intentionality of it.
Right.
With
Yeah.
no shade to metaphysics, but it's kind of a different like integral quadrant. Like
Yeah. 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 Totally. Yeah. I know what you mean. Yeah.
but if you were able to tune it, you could find, what is the harmonic resonance of my organ, which might be slightly different than somebody else's organ. So being able to
Exactly.
customize it. But it could also be dangerous, if you did it too strongly, it could be
Yeah.
harmful. So you'd want to be really gentle with the amplitude of the frequency. I know they do a lot of rhythmic motility, frequency palpation in visceral manipulation. Who's the guy, Baral? So they're like, oh, we're palpating the frequency of the different visceral organs. Like, what's the one, the omentum? My
Oh, the
friend,
momentum. Yeah.
my friend
The
Alex
apron.
Rosen, probably somebody else I'll interview. He's a body worker and trauma therapist who he studied recently the level one visceral manipulation, and he's like, oh, let me practice on you, and so that he was like, now this is the frequency of your omentum, and so he
Ah,
was amplifying my own wave. Like he
yeah.
was feeling it and giving it like a palpatory biofeedback to strengthen the wave. So it's like now it's opening, now it's closing, and so it's kind of like the cranial sacral rhythms, but it's in the
Yeah.
organs. So there's actual motion that happens that has been measured, like in the kidneys and
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
heart and other stuff. They have their own. It's funny, the Zoom is thinking I'm making some like hand signal. I'm raising my hand, showing the
Oh,
little.
yeah. Yeah.
So
I
that
don't see it though.
they
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
their own rhythm
Hmm.
that can be palpated and therefore apparently measured. I think you can use some kind of ultrasonic thing to
Yeah.
so that could be, but those frequencies are so slow, like with the prana wave, HRV resonances, they're actually uh, infrasonic, right? So you can't actually hear it
Can't
because
hear
it's too
it.
slow.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I'm not sure. I don't think a vibrotransducer could reproduce that frequency um, on that level without some other kind of modification, because you might need a really big diaphragm to make those really slow waves. And
Yeah.
like the little small speaker like kind of moves faster, so you need like a bigger one to move slower somehow.
Yeah.
I'll have to think about that.
Yeah. I wonder if we even really have to know, right? But it's like, we don't really need to know the frequency because, it just, nature just, creates a
Yeah, well,
program
the
and that's
intentionality
our,
trumps the frequency,
I think
I
so.
think.
I think so too. Yeah.
Not to
And
use the T word, but
no, it's true. And then just kind of what
I'm just kidding.
okay, I just got that. It's like, oh yeah, yeah, but
But
yeah,
yeah, I think intention is so powerful more than we
I
realize.
think
And
so.
so, using the voice, you can be like, "Ooh, I'm gonna sing to your kidney a little love song," or sing to my kidney, putting the hands on. Like, we don't need some,
Totally. We
$1,000
don't,
device.
we don't, we don't. Even Veda Austin just says sink to your water and drink it. Or, easy water, extrusion zone water is the fourth phase of water. It's like between a liquid and a solid, which is gel-like. And you can attain that when you freeze the ice and then it starts to melt. There's a part there, a zone there where it's exclusion zone.
Hmm.
And you eat
Right.
it and eat it.
Hmm.
Yeah. And
Cool.
it's
Yeah, I'll
like
have to
heating
check out
water.
the recording that you made with her.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
like her work. She really took the who was the guy, the Japanese guy
Masaru
who passed
Emoto.
away? Yeah, Emoto. So like
Yeah.
Emoto was super cool for opening people's minds to it, but in my own personal take, maybe it's not correct, but I was like he was hunting with a microscope for like very particular things, so it was kind of curating as sort of a selective bias in a way, but as far as
Yeah.
I know, Veda's work, she's not using a microscope. She's just looking at like the macro patterns, which is like
Yeah.
that's not selective bias. That's just like right there in the naked eye. So
Yeah,
she really
totally.
brought it to a whole other level. And she's teaching
Yeah.
people how to do that in their kitchen.
Yeah, she has a book out, The Living Language of Water, with all of her, I think I forget how many, she's done 52,000, I think,
Wow.
what do you call
What
it?
does she call them? Like glyphs or something?
Hydroglyphs.
Hydroglyphs?
Hydroglyphs, yeah.
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 So
And
cool.
and now she's doing it with ancient civilizations, so like Egypt and all, and the water, sacred water.
Whoa.
That's her next book that's coming out. Yeah.
Very cool.
Really, I
I'll have
love,
to
I love, I love, I
look
love
into
where we
that.
are. right now. It's like we're all like, crossing paths. It's like it's amazing, where we are right now. Yeah. It feels like humans 2.0. I don't know. It feels like it's an upgrade somehow. Like all of this knowledge,
Yeah,
but the
there's
biology.
also the chaos zone. We're kind of hitting the turbulence
Yeah,
before we like pop up to the new altitude.
totally. Feels like that. It feels like that. Boy, this year was exactly like that. My gosh. Yeah, but the beauty of it is like Germanic new medicine. It's not like just like hullabaloo. It's not like, I read it off a book and then I'm just parroting what people are saying. I feel it in my
Mhm.
body. I've never gotten a flu because of it. And I had a 6-hour cold and I knew exactly what caused it. Then I had a life
Wow,
and death asthma attack, status asthmaticus, on April 9, 2024, the day of the eclipse. And also there were some frequencies coming in. I survived it, but I could have died if I didn't know. If I were just this person who wasn't a risk taker, knew biohacking and knew her biology so well and knew Germanische Heilkunde really well, I would have died. I was really at the brink of death. And so I'm creating a video about it called Life and Breath, how Germanische Heilkunde saved me, because I knew it
amazing.
so well. I knew that at the time that I was dying was like the epic crisis. This is like the worst part. And this is where the biology, if you look at the traditional Chinese medicine, the hour between 3 and 5 is like the lung hour. And that's like the
Yeah.
height of vagatonia. And the lung hour,
Hmm.
the lung 2 hours is when the energy starts the day. It's what wakes you up. So it's like the highest energetic point. And that was when I thought I was going to die. But I knew this is the epic crisis. If you survive this, just go through it. Just, whatever breath you can take. And then the sun comes up, you'll be okay. You'll be better. So just go for it. But about 8 times that night, I said, I'm going to die today.
Wow.
Yeah. But
I
then
look forward to
to the
hearing
to
that
the
video.
video. Yeah, I know. I have to still have to make it. And it's gonna be presented in the global GHK platform as an anniversary video to celebrate Dr. Hammer kind of thing. So
Amazing.
yeah.
Your contribution back to the field.
That and the special needs. Yeah, special needs. Kid with ADHD and motor vocal tics. It's
So just for
big deal.
our viewers, can you share about if somebody wanted to come to your center or work with you, how would they be able to do that? What are
Sure.
your offerings currently?
Yeah, well, I'm located in the Philippines. So if there's any special needs cases and trauma cases, it's ideally better in person, because I have like a brick and mortar facility with biohacking clinical grade machines that are non-medical. I do online work though for Germanische Heilkunde consultations, like for mental illness and for cancer programs or whatever chronic disease, where for us there's no such thing as chronic. And basically that's just to investigate the psychobiological root cause, like what happened in your life that caused the organ to respond, and then how to orchestrate real life solutions. It's kind of to reverse engineer, because the cure is in the cause. Basically, the
Hmm.
problem always comes with a solution already. And we just have to look at it and see what practical things we can do in life to reframe it. And if that's not possible, then we have to reframe the mindset, the thought process. So the belief, attitude, or perception of oneself or of the situation, kind of thing. So those things, and also trauma therapy, I do that. And you could reach me through my IG. I have two. One is Biohacking Pioneer PH. The other is Coach_Eli_Abela. So both of those also on Facebook. And I have two groups on Facebook. One is Biohacking Philippines. The other is Biohacking plus GHK Philippines. So I combine the thought, like my insights on both.
Yeah,
And yeah, that's pretty
synthesis.
much, yeah, synthesis. Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
do you also do like yamana classes and other things like that?
I do at my center. Yes, only at my center. And I
Yeah.
do it as body work for like my kids with special needs and my trauma patients. I
Uh-huh.
do yamana stuff to release the fascia in person.
And
Yes.
Did you
Yeah.
also have like a sound healing event with gongs and things
I
also I saw?
did. Yes, yes, yes. I
Yeah,
did. That was called the Sounder Sleep System that's based on Feldenkrais. And then I also invited a sound bath healer who was certified with different sound bowls, and it was so beautiful. Just so amazing. Yes, I did that
cool.
in my center, which I want to. This year was all about Germanshe Halkunde for some reason. Like next
Yeah,
week I'll have the principal like on the planet, the one person who is like the direct student of Dr. Hammer who's still alive and speaks English here. He's coming here next weekend and he's teaching three
amazing.
days. The first day, it's the basics of Germanshe Halkunde. The second day, pregnancy conflicts and special needs kids. It's success stories. The third is psychosis and constellation. So anxiety, depression, bipolarity, nymphomania, what else? Anorexia, autistic constellation, also postmortem constellation, the people who are suicidal. And we know if they're suicidal, if they're gonna hang themselves, or if they're gonna jump, or if they're gonna slash. So
Wow.
Germanshe Halkunde knows
That
all this.
that's giving me goosebumps. Like, so that's so cool. You're able to host him at your center or
Yeah, yeah,
just somewhere else in
he's
Manila.
coming. Not at my center. We have an events place, and he's gonna give a talk, and then
Okay.
yeah, three
Yeah,
days. So
that's
yeah, he's here.
great. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. It's amazing.
And then so you mentioned the sounder sleep system. So that's kind of like
Yeah.
a sort of sleep hygiene type of skills, or do
It's
you want to
a
say a
little
little bit
bit,
about that?
sure, it's a little bit like Yoga Nidra. It's kind of in the
Okay,
same
okay.
vein of Yoga Nidra, but it's Feldenkrais based because it was transposed by one of the Feldenkrais practitioner into
Wow.
yeah, like a body of work that's specifically for using somatic techniques to make oneself sleep. And I'm telling you, you're
Oh,
asleep
that's cool.
in seconds. Really. It's so amazing.
Wow. And then also, didn't you also do the stuff with the Tellington touch for pets and animals as well?
I I did. I wanted to get certified in that, except that it was all in person in Canada, and I didn't.
Hmm.
I didn't want to go. But otherwise, it's Tellington Tita. She's also a Feldenkrais practitioner, so she's also using the Feldenkrais method to to
Okay.
feel to the animal. Same thing. They have same nervous system, so the touch on humans
Yeah.
and animals pretty much the same.
That's so cool that there's like this whole family of Feldenkrais,
I know.
lineage, you know. There's another guy I sort of bumped up, like Jeremy Krause or something. Have you heard
Yes.
of him? And
Oh,
that's like I don't
I
have the money or time to study his stuff
I
at the moment, but I was like, that
hung
sounds really cool. The solvents and glue.
I hung out with him.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, because he came to Hong Kong in 2019, and then I went to Hong Kong. He gave a like a short form workshop on Feldenkrais for kids with special needs, and we invited parents, and I went. We met him and everything, took him out to dinner and everything. He's brilliant, and I think he started work with Feldenkrais in person at the age of 16. So yeah, he
Wow.
studied, and he's still a young guy, and he's teaching solvents and glue and all of that. And I love because they have their own interpretation. Like Feldenkrais was brilliant, so like
Yeah.
a polymath, right? Um, but it's vast and it can be chaotic too. So to have these people kind of distill it in a way where you could understand it and have give it some structure and some sort of cohesive form, like the way Anat did. She just basically took maybe like 200 exercises and made it into our certification course. But there, in reality, there are like 6,000 lessons.
Wow.
Feldenkrais.
It's a lot to digest.
It's a lot,
Um,
it's a lot. But see, the thing about these gurus, elders, and like Feldenkrais, Dr. Hammer, they're like mind-blowing genius. But they couldn't avert death. And I know there's entropy, right? I know there's entropy. I'm just from in that place of negentropy, right? Because we're
hmm.
healthcare practitioners and we are in this, evolution human 2.0 thing. So we are into negentropy, negative entropy. We want to see if we can avert death as much as you could organically, barring you get hit by a
Yeah.
bus, right? But
It's like a Taoist longevity practices, like turning
yeah,
back the wheel of time.
yeah, exactly. So it's like, they passed away. They died, both of them of a stroke. And that's highly psychobiological. That's emotional. A stroke is like I have nowhere to go. I'm stuck in between a rock and a hard place, and there's an invasion. And the only way for me to survive this conflict is if I play dead. So it's like the
Hmm.
faint response in the dorsal vagal system, much like a squirrel who would play dead in front of a fox, can't outrun the fox, and the only thing that
Yeah.
they could survive is to play dead. And so it's like, well, you know all of this information, you know the body so well and everything, but you couldn't avert death, right? So I feel like it's up to us now to kind of use whatever they taught to create a body of work that will, you know, add a layer to what they taught and what they discovered.
Yeah.
That's
Standing on the shoulders of giants.
exactly equally mind-blowing, empowers people to take care of their own health, be responsible and self-sovereign. And it's like this movement that I call self-health, period, self-health. So
Hmm.
yeah,
Amazing.
anyway, I'm so passionate. I'm sorry about that. I know we're already exiting, but yeah. Anyway.
Oh, no, it's fine. Yeah, thank you for sharing. Yeah, thank you
Well,
so much, Ellie,
you're
for all of
welcome.
your personal dedication to helping people and children and animals have
Thank
better
you.
quality of life. And
Aw,
um, yeah, just I appreciate who you are and what you're doing. And it was really fun to jam
thank
out
you.
together and play and nerd about different concepts. Maybe we could do it again sometime.
I hope so. I learned so many things. Thank you so much for your nerdiness and for your, dumbing it down for me and watering it down. I know you could go like all out, and it's like, Ellie, I don't know if you can understand this, but thank you so much also for your work. I think it's brilliant, and I think we're gonna work together more in the future in this field. I feel that. So yeah, thank you so much for your innovation, your, the inventor's mind and all of that. So
Yeah,
creator.
it's my 125th harmonic on my birth chart. Like the five harmonic is about playfulness and creativity and nourishment, and then 25 is like five squared is like very kind of, and then the 125 is like five cubed, and like I have this crazy conjunction of like six planets in my 125th harmonic, which is just like crazy inventive madness.
When is your birthday?
It's May 8th, so I'm in
May
Taurus,
May 8th, 19 what? Or yeah, 19.
79.
Okay, okay. So I am
I'm an
79.
Earth sheep.
You're an earth sheep? Okay. I think what am I? I'm a water rat, I think. I'm a water
Okay.
rat. 1972. Yeah. Earth sheep and water rat. Okay. And then so you're a Taurus and you're rising what?
I'm a Leo rising
Leo
and a
rising
Libra moon.
and a Libra moon. Okay. It's as if I know anything about that, right? Yeah. I'm a
Well, I'm the
Taurus
same. I'm like,
rising. Taurus rising.
okay,
And then
cool.
Virgo moon, I think. Yeah. And then Aries.
Mm,
That sign. So
awesome.
cool. It's so cool. You know what? I'm getting my astrology chart read by somebody who's like you who reads charts, birth charts, the time of birth and all of that, and who knows Germanische Heilkunde constellations.
Mm,
So it's kind of
interesting.
to match that up with the constellations that you're running. So basically,
Very cool.
when someone is running like a rage constellation, a mythomaniac constellation where prolific writing or
Hmm,
orating, that's a mythomaniac, or like
hmm,
hustling, which is megalomania, like puffing up and trying to be the best and trying to stomp everybody down. So that's megalomanic and all. And
hmm.
to see your birth chart and see, is your constellation serving you and your purpose at this time? That's why it's there. Because we look at it as a survival mechanism, like a super sense. And
Hmm.
what's useful is that you can get into it if you need it for your mission. And then when you're done, you turn it off and
Yeah.
rest.
It kind of reminds me a little bit of like homeopathy, how they kind of
Yes,
analyze oh, this is your key remedy, like is
totally,
your
totally.
sulfur type or it's Paul, what's his name from
Yes,
KS? He's like pioneered all kinds of weird remedies like from the animal
yes.
kingdom and crystal stuff or something. Um, anyhow, that's a whole other
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah,
But
though
yeah,
GHB doesn't like homeopathy. They don't accept
yeah.
it. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. The thing like you're
But
describing this megalo mythomania
Meg
and things like that.
yeah,
So
megalomania.
in harmonic astrology, like we look at like they're called planetary pictures, which are it actually comes from a German Uranian astrology, Alfred Witte from like 100 years ago, but it's
Oh,
a different take on it. But looking at midpoints or harmonic currents where there's like conjunctions in a different harmonic of three or more planets. So two or more planets is two planets is kind of just like there's a tendency, but three planets there's like a higher resonance for expression, but also for attraction. So it's like a harmonic resonance can be expressed as a part of our identity, but it can also be what we magnetize into our life as well. It's kind of just a resonance principle. And so like Mercury, like when you're talking about that, it would be like Mercury, Pluto, Mars or something. It's like,
oh
yeah,
yeah,
this
yeah, yeah, yeah.
aggressive verbalization with compulsive whatever. So
Totally.
it's all these different combinations of three planets have different
Right.
flavors. And I don't know what the permutation of like nine planets with three different combinations is like a lot.
Wouldn't it
So,
be
but
awesome to know? Yeah,
it creates like a palette, like an archetypal palette of different, flavors and shades of
yeah.
frequency.
Totally.
And that do you do the Enneagram stuff at all?
I did
Um,
before, and I forget what I was.
yeah. So
ENTJ or
Enneagram
whatever.
also has an astrological component, like not necessarily from the birth chart, but from the planets.
Mm.
And it's kind of a hidden thing that people don't talk about very much in the Enneagram, but it's almost like they kind of whitewashed the whitewashed astrology to make it more palatable or something.
Oh yeah.
But if you start at type three as the sun, and then you go backwards, type two is the moon, type one is Mercury, type nine is Venus, type eight is Mars, type seven is type seven is uh,
Jupiter,
Jupiter, yeah. And then type six is Saturn, type
Saturn.
five is Uranus, type four is Neptune, and type three is sun again. So it just gives a
Oh,
whole other, it's like, oh, like there's actually like these archetypal flavors to the planetary energies. And like that
totally.
it maps with the Enneagram was also just like, whoa, that's cool.
They all kind of match up, right? I mean, like even Ayurveda, when you look at the doshas and all of that, I mean, there's
Hmm.
elements of also the planetary influences on that
Yeah.
and all.
I read
I
this quote as somebody, I wish I could give credit to whoever said it, but it was something like, astrology is the sort of queen of all mystical sciences that,
oh,
it's everything is connected through that
yeah,
kind
yeah,
of.
yeah.
It's this very, I mean, because we're living in the solar system surrounded by these
Totally.
planets with the gravitational, so it's like how could it not be part of our
Totally.
matrix of reality?
I so agree. Every year I get a Batse reading. So they based on your astrology, your whatever, they'll give you a reading every month. And they'll tell you like this month is the month that you don't shop. Don't shop for anything luxurious, save your
Huh.
money. You're gonna have, issues with business partners and you're gonna have issues with documents.
Hmm.
And this month, oh, you can shop in this month. This is the only month you can shop. And I tell
Huh.
you, it's so specific. It's like so accurate too. They'll say, "Oh, this month there might be a chance that people are going to talk behind your back and spread rumors about you." So true. Oh my gosh. And so with that knowledge, because it's based on your stars, right? And the influences of the animals based on Chinese astrology and the animals that they're clashing with. So let's say my clash is a horse and it's a horse month. Oh yeah, this month you're gonna get all the clashes. And then if it's a
Hmm.
rat month, this month is everything is gonna align with you. Down to the day. Like this is a rat day, as a dragon day, and all of that. And they tell you this is when you sign contracts. This is when you stay at home and don't even go out. It's it's so
Wow.
true. And
Yeah, it's
for
just
me,
living in harmony with the patterns of nature,
yeah,
basically.
based on your
And
stars.
then,
So for
but that
you,
there's an intelligent, uh, a comprehensible pattern behind it all that
there
actually can
is.
be decoded, that we can decode the encryption. So it's just like mind blowing.
And that is so empowering. That is exactly how I felt when I learned Germanische Heilkunde. Now we know what the psyche's thinking. We know what this freaking billion-year old evolution is thinking, and we can decode it. It's kind of like what came to mind was like if people don't understand that, it's like, the Hunger Games, the second one, where they kind of decoded the clock, where
I don't
randomly
remember that one,
oh,
but
you don't remember? They were in that arena where there was
uh-huh.
flood and forest, and then sometimes the bats would come out,
Yeah,
everything. And it was so random. They were just like, like headless chickens, like running away from it and whatever. Then they figured out, oh, it's a clock. And at this
there's a
time,
pattern.
yeah, there's a pattern. And they found the pattern. And from there they biohacked it. They kind of decoded it and they could avoid it. So just
Mm.
knowing and decoding those patterns gives you this whole level of power.
Yeah, I mean that's in Chinese culture. That's sort of like the deeper art of feng shui, right? That and there's
Yes,
astrological and what do you call it, geomancy and stuff like that.
geomancy.
So it's like yeah, it's basically like living in harmony with patterns of nature through observation and flow.
Yes,
And
yes.
yeah, it's
And
like
being able to manipulate it to a certain extent. Like these are all feng shui bracelets, just for
mm,
me. And I have animal pendants beside me
hmm
also, just to,
like
base
talismans.
talismans and everything. Because basically some people are born with a car with four wheels and a straight road. These are the very lucky people. But if you're born with one wheel and a rocky road, you're gonna need some
Yeah.
help, energetic help. So these are that's what they're there for.
Yeah. That's cool. And
Yeah.
also the thing that blows my mind is there's so many different flavors of systems, like even with the Chinese stuff, there's like, oh, the Singapore flavor, the Taiwan flavor, the Hong Kong
Yes.
flavor, and there's like, no, my teacher said do it like this. Or with
Yeah, yes, yes.
astrology, there you have the Vedic astrology, you have the German astrology, you have it's like, no, this and like so that I find it very challenging sometimes that like how can all these different things work in their own way? Like
Yeah.
there's got to be something that connects them together, like because it's all
Right?
connected.
Have you heard of human design?
Oh yeah, I actually
Right.
made on my website a body graph calculator.
You did? Oh, okay. Yeah,
Yeah, so
yeah.
I've
I've
been
seen
learning a
that.
bit about it. I'm not an expert at all, but I know a little bit. It's cool, and the
It
gene
is
keys and
it is totally, for me, at least mine, it's so bang on in elements that the others can't get because it's so specific.
yeah.
The sense of smell. Like smell for me is like that's me, smell.
Mm,
Like I love smell. Even if it's not a good smell, even if it's a bad smell, I still gravitate towards smell. That's my sense,
mm.
and I'm a manifesting generator. I guess most people are, but things like that. And then upheaval, cross of upheaval or something like that. It's like you go
Mm.
against the grain of everything and you rebel at
Yeah, mine is I
everything.
have cross of defiance. So I
Oh,
have my
it's kind
own
of
like
like,
I'm just like, nah, I gotta do it my way. Like I gotta defy
right?
what you tell me.
Oh, no wonder we're kind of in the same thread of line of
Yeah,
work in a way. Yeah.
yeah. So
It's
I'm
a
I'm doing
very
some cool stuff.
cool. Yeah,
Go
yeah.
ahead.
Go ahead. You're making what?
So I'm doing some cool stuff synthesizing different astrological techniques with the human design stuff and kind of remixing it. Which some people have done already, but I kind of just it's my own take on it of like there's things called like solar arc directions and where you can like rotate the chart forward through times because it kind of ripens. So you can look at like what is the incarnation cross as it's ripening through time. It transits these different gates, and so you can say, oh, these are becoming these gifts are becoming ripe for you, possibly like at this phase of your life, at this age. So I'm still playing with it. It's kind of an experimental thing, but I'm looking for experts in the field who can I can bounce it off of and be like, hey, does this make sense? Like, what do you think about that? And 'cause that's very much that's a Saturn Uranus thing. It's kind of like remixing because
Uh-huh.
it's
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
Uranus has that kind of like freaky weird orbit and it's like eccentric and like in the now, and then Saturn is kind of like the old long lasting truth, and so like
Oh,
there's friction that happens between the old and the new that creates like creative playful remixes, so that's very much part of my essence. It has that like
yeah.
remixing function.
I'd love to see that app or whatever you had, but back in 2009, there's somebody who created it. Was 2009 is like archaic for me, but there's this Reiki master, this pre-KS that I knew about. Anyway, she gets your birthday and gets your birth time, and she puts it into some software, and it's called the Soul Blueprint. And based on that, it tells you how many master numbers you have. And if you have master numbers, then you have this of service, life of service to humanity kind of thing. So it's like you have the burden and responsibility of, finding something that helps humanity shift. So
Mm,
I was told this in 2009. So I have six master numbers apparently, and I didn't know what that meant, but basically it's like service to others, really. And
yeah.
that's what I feel my life is now. But it also has that breakdown of like when you're 47, this is what happens, 48. Yeah. And
Yeah.
apparently for my
It's a
life, it's like
numerology.
in numerology, yeah, it kind of peaks at 50 something, and then at 60, I'm kind of gonna chill out more, which I look forward to. But I love being in time of creativity and action, curiosity, and not knowing what's gonna happen, but being excited about what the possibilities. It's just, I don't know, it's mind blowing. It's a
Mm,
great time to be alive, basically.
awesome.
Awesome.
I'm loving
Oh
the
my
well, yeah, let's say goodbye for now. I'm loving your fan, like it's giving you this kind of like music video look of beauty.
I look like Beyonce or something. Sorry. I know. I love these portable fans. Oh my God. Never leave home without them in the Philippines. I'm sure it's
Yeah.
really cold there, right? It's so humid here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very cold and dark, wintry here in northern England. Okay, Ellie, thanks so much. This was so much fun.
You're welcome. Thank you so much too. I'll send you the recording. Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
awesome.
Bye,
To be
Dave. Have a
continued.
lovely day.
Thanks,
Bye.
love you. Bye.
Love ya. Bye.